Pro Saints Talk Nation, Ron Nation, where you at? How you living? The PST crew is back after an extended hiatus and wildcard defeat hangover to give you a moment of respite during these long, lonely days. In this episode, we reflect on the 2019 season, 2020 free agency, the upcoming draft, and the uncertain future of the Saints and this podcast. Rons, it has truly been a dream come true to talk to you all. So sit back and turn up some Pro Saints talk.
Look at uptown people like yeah yeah yeah. People up and gritting like yeah yeah yeah. Mid city folks like yeah yeah yeah. People downtown man yeah yeah yeah.
Where you at, Hoodats, and welcome back. It's been a hiatus. It's been a bit of a break, and we apologize for that. And look, we've been sitting in here during the quarantine time, and we said, man, what are we doing? We got to shake off the rust. We got to get back. We got to unpack the microphones. We got to unpack the headsets, get this thing back live and going. Pro Saints Talk is back, baby. Pro Saints Talk is back, ladies and gentlemen. And so, look, we're doing it for the Rons, the CoRONas, and the CoRondas. George, bring you in, baby. How you been living?
Lavish, Ron, as lavish as a human being can live under these circumstances. You know, I've turned into a proper 70-year-old North Shore woman with all my activities really being gardening and baking and filling out SBA paperwork. But Ron, you know, it's a stimulating day. A lot going on to excite the Rons out there. 91% of the Ron Nation had a stimulating event today, but 100% of the Ron Nation is going to get an even better stimulation when the Pro Saints Talk episode returns tomorrow in your ears, guys. Forgive us for the delay. I mean, after the Vikings game, we were texting, gotta do an episode. But we were blue after that Vikings game. We were blue, and that's on us. We should have overcome. We shouldn't have let outside factors determine how we behave, how we act. And you know what? We messed up. We should have given you an episode. But we didn't, and we apologize for that. But we're here for you now. And guys, we love you. Ron, it's great to hear your voice. Jay, it's finally great to get you online. Now here's Jay to say what's up.
Hey, guys. What's up, George, Ron? Good to be back on here. Wow. What a difference a couple months make from that playoff game against the Vikings to where we are today. A lot has changed. But George, to your point, we're doing our best over here in the Black Pearl, and a lot to take from this quarantine. A lot of silver linings, a lot more time with the boy, a lot more time with the family. So that's been good. But nice to sit here tonight and talk Saints, and I think it will be therapeutic in a way to go back and to rehash this 2019-2020 season and look ahead, and looking ahead with a question mark on really unprecedented times right now, interesting times.
No, you couldn't have put it better, Jay. Everybody's looking for some kind of outlet right now, some kind of distraction. You know, I'm sure everybody's neighborhood's just like mine, where people get told they got to stay home, and man, they're doing everything they can outside the house. You know, oh man, everybody's getting cabin fever, and the same is true for all of us, right? Yeah, it's been great. We've had our great family time. You know, as our fans know, we're all family men on this podcast, and that's why we juggle, you know, everything so well normally. But yeah, we had to do this for the fans. We had to bring it back. But honestly, selfishly, we had to do this for us, right? I mean, we needed this distraction. We needed this outlet just as bad as y'all. So, George, look, I guess let's get the hard part over with first, and let's just talk about what the heck happened. I mean, I did myself no favors. I went back and listened to our last episode as we hyped up that Vikings wildcard game. And I know none of us were excited about playing in the wildcard round. I mean, we were the third team ever to go 13-3 and not have the bye. And we were actually two of those three teams ever. So it was upsetting that we were even playing that weekend. And sure enough, just got set up in the trap game. I mean, is that what you think happened, George?
No. And in the middle of that third quarter there, I just had this epiphany. I just lost hope in that game and that season somewhere in the third quarter where I was like, maybe there's something fundamentally wrong with the Saints. And we are built on Drew Brees' success. And we're like the Steve Nash sons. For some reason, we have a great track record in the regular season.
Great
And then
comparison.
something about our playoffs that when we get in the playoffs, we're just not ourselves. You can see it in Drew Brees. He's uncomfortable. He's forcing throws. He's missing the plays he makes time in and time out. He puts so much pressure on himself because this is my last two rounds. I got to do it. I might not ever get another chance to do this again. I'm probably not. And then he forces it and he crumbles. It's like a guy who's nervous at his job interview. And instead of just being himself, he's a nervous Nelly and sweats and messes it up. And that's who he turns into in the playoffs. And we're not built.
And then has to walk home.
And then has to walk home. And then that's a good story. I'll tell y'all later. And so that's. But in a nutshell, we're not like a smooth team that can win in the playoffs that relies on defense. We rely all on Drew Brees like we did in that game when really it was Taysom Hill. It was clickbait that was making the plays. If you talk to any Viking fan after that game, they're like, man, when y'all put Brees back in the game, whew, sigh of relief because clickbait was beating our ass. And that is the future. You're going to say, George, you're jumping the gun. You're looking at topic number 5. C'est la vie, so be it. But that's my point. I had that epiphany in that game. Like there's something about the Saints. You can say, oh, George, we were a no call away or a Minnesota miracle away. Yeah, the farther you get from that, you have to think bigger. And why did Tom Brady have more playoff success? And why did Drew Brees not? And that's a question that we're going to think about for decades to come.
Whoa, George, you're already stirring up some emotions on my end and how I got flustered after this game because I came to Breeze's defense. I don't think anybody, I don't care if you had Taysom Hill back there all game long, the offensive line was held together by, glue sticks. I mean, it was terrible, man. Everson Griffin and Daniil Hunter had their way. They were getting great pressure. I don't blame all those, Drew Brees, if I recall, had 2 turnovers in the game. One was the fumble, one was the pick. The fumble, I can't put that on him, man. You're asking a guy with a thumb that he admitted was never going to be 100%, and he's running for his life, and the ball gets knocked loose. So, yeah, we are a team that's dependent upon our quarterback's success. I would say 99% of NFL teams are like that. I'm fine with that when my quarterback's Drew Brees. I just think we have a very strict policy on you got to keep Brees upright and have him have time. And we didn't do that game. And it all goes downhill. We've seen that script over and over again. And I think we even alluded to it a little bit going into the game that was going to be a big thing, the pass rush. But Jay, I mean, other than that, I mean, were there obvious weaknesses that we were just blind to? I mean, I feel like the whole year we were talking about how good this team was.
It was a really solid team. And George, Ron, I don't know if you were on the call, but we started out this season going on Corey Johnson's show. We had a little spot going on there on Thursdays. And he asked us what our biggest concern was going into the season. And he talked about Drew Brees. He went off on a tangent about Brees, how he's same old Brees, and arm strength isn't an issue. And it is very popular to talk about in New Orleans. Every time Brees throws short, every Ronnie will turn to their dad or their friend and say, there it is, I told you, another example. But I think what you saw, against the Vikings is that's really not a good matchup for the Saints offense going against that defense. You got Harrison Smith back there. He's a downhill kind of safety. He is really good when everything's in front of him, not necessarily when he's turning his hips or running backwards. And Brees just can't stretch the field at this point in his career. I think the longest pass play was by Taysom early on in that game. And when you play a defense like that, that coupled with Ron, which you talked about earlier, I don't think – I know for a fact for being in that Superdome that the team was flat. So absolutely coaching played a part in it. And I think just human nature a little bit as a fan base, watching that Seattle-San Francisco game, how close it was, how close the Saints were to getting that bye and being 2 wins from the Super Bowl, then just all the wind out of the sails. When Seattle doesn't get into the end zone, and then it's like, oh, shit.
Seattle no call.
Right. And then you got to play 6 days later. And I got a friend that I worked with at Army, and he works for the Giants now in an entry-level coaching position. And he said, the thing about the Vikings is they run the ball like nobody else in the league. And if you guys remember, Dalvin Cook wasn't really healthy really until that point in the season. And it seemed like their offensive line was just crushing our defensive line. Like he was running through there like Swiss cheese. He almost wasn't touched for 4 to 5 yards. So they were banging us up on offense. And then Adam Thielen was healthy. He wasn't healthy all year. So that version of the Vikings with Thielen, Cook healthy was a lot different than the 10-6 Vikings that struggled down the stretch. And then also they were super motivated. Go back to Zimmer showing the clip of the NFL doing the playoff commercial where the Vikings weren't even included. Back to local radio stations talking about the weather in Green Bay all week. It's like, come on, that ain't a good recipe. So at the end of the day, as shocking as it was, and it from working in it, you think almost that when you say trap game, Ron, it's almost cliche, but teams and coaches, they do overlook opponents, and it's hard to believe that a team at that level, at that stage in the season would overlook somebody, but they definitely overlooked them, and it seemed like they didn't realize it until third, fourth quarter, and it was too late.
So you described a lot of intangibles in that. And so, George, I guess I want to throw it to you in terms of tangibles and get into our first Ron question. I mean, we have been flooded with these, and look, I don't want to say it's because nobody's got anything better to do. I'd like to think it's the fans have been missing this for this much. But let's first throw it to Stu, our Birdman, and fill in Stat Ron at times. And George, what was the biggest weakness in the team last season? I mean, and I guess we'll segue into this later, but have we addressed it so far this offseason? Or what do we need to address? But let's just go with that. What was the weakness last year? What was the kryptonite?
So the kryptonite heading into the season is this. And we said this a year ago, and that's why – well, last year was wide receiver number 2, but that's been addressed. You got Emmanuel Sanders now. But, Ron, to answer your question, you know what's going to happen come week 13 of every season with Teron Armstead. He's going to have a strained labrum. He's out 6 weeks. If there was a way you could be a day trader on Wall Street and take that bet, I would take that bet every day through the season that he's going to get hurt sometime between week 10 and 16. And some riders are like, George, you're jinxing Teron Armstead. No, bro, look back at it. I don't have a stat Ron to correct me. I just know that's what happens. And then you bump Pete outside, and Pete's a bit injury prone. And then once you're without Armstead, your offensive line gets shaky, gets scared. And hey, what did I just talk about? We rely on Drew Brees. When he has Teron Armstead, he's as good as anyone. Even when he's 72 years old back there on his walker, he's fine. He can get it done. Without Teron Armstead, a healthy Teron Armstead, our offense can't get out of the mud, can't get out of its own way. So I would love to see exterior depth on the offensive line because we have the two best, Ramrod and Armstead, the best duo in the league. I'll take them over anybody. After that, you have Greenridge. No way, Jose.
So George, do you roll the? I mean, it's almost like, do you roll the dice this year? Like, are you drafting for depth this year when clearly, your quarterback has already signed a deal with NBC Sports to be in a booth next year. You know what I mean? Is it obviously Armstead's going to be out, but there are other positions of need out there where you're going to risk putting a first-round pick on the bench for, even if he's playing 4 games a year, he's going to be sitting for 12.
Hey, Armstead's not going to play forever. He's got a big contract. If you let him walk, that's a lot of free money that you can allocate somewhere else in free agency if you have a young stud at left tackle. He's very expensive. He's very good, but he's also very injury prone. And I'm ready to go full blast with clickbait. I'm ready to go full. I know he's injury prone too, so you can address that with another quarterback down the road. But for 2020, 2021, we have 2 good quarterbacks. I'm cool
so
with
you're
Drew
more
Brees. I'm cool with
focused on
clickbait.
21, 22 than you are 2020. You're not thinking we need to make a splash pick, contributes right away to help us win the Super Bowl.
I think there's no other
let's
position
go for the safer bet.
I think there's no other position that helps us win a Super Bowl than shoring up left tackle. Because in the home stretch, it happened last year. I mean, the year before last. Remember that Steelers game when Jermon Bushrod had to play left tackle. It just changes everything on our offense when we have that weak link at left tackle. So if you shore that up, that's how I see us winning deep into the playoffs. Because how did we lose the Vikings game? You both mentioned it. The defensive ends on the Vikings ate our lunch. It was bad. Poor showing. Hey, we have one more big guy. We can protect it. It's like you always build on the defensive line. Hey, we've done a great job of that recently. But now we can do the same thing on the offensive line, one more big body.
To that point, why don't you add another pass rusher in the first round? Because, go back and look at the Super Bowl winners of the last 10 years. They've all had deep defensive lines and impressive pass rushers. You got Jordan. You don't really know what Davenport is. Hopefully he takes another step. But if you can add a guy that can get to the passer and all of a sudden you can rotate those guys in, doesn't that help you? Does that help you more than getting depth on the offensive line?
I like T-Rex more than I like Ethan Greenridge.
I don't know Ethan
Jay,
Greenridge.
I gotta side with George on this one. Look, Teron Armstead, I'm a big homer, just like we all are, and it's hard for me to talk bad about guys that have been so good for us for so long. But he's a far cry from that 4.7 140 he ran back at the combine. I mean, go back and look at that wild card round. Look, he was dealing with a pectoral injury. All right, not anything on the lower half. He looked slow, very, very slow. And look, Ramczyk did too. Those are some fast defensive ends that they got, but I'm with George on this. You got to shore up the offensive line. That to me is more of an all-in move for Drew Brees, for this team right here, right now.
And that's what we talked about. That's what we talked about last year, guys. Right, George? We were talking about Dalton Risner.
It's exactly what we talked about.
Yeah. Could use Greg Little. That's what we said. Yeah. And then we got the center, and we thought, okay, well they're just bounce. They're counting on Pete to bounce that left tackle. I think history has shown that's okay, but that's not Super Bowl caliber left tackle play.
Jay, I think when I was asked that question on Corey's show of where the weakness was, I think I was very vocal about left tackle and vocal about the injury concerns with Teron Armstead. But George, just looking high level, big picture, we're going to reflect on 2019. We're going to remember 2019 for all the good times too, and all the great moments of that season. Obviously, Michael Thomas, the record-setting season. Hate that it was squandered in a wild card defeat, but I guess now that we're so removed from this past season, where does it rank for you? And that segues into one of our other fan questions for the night, coming from our boy Hunter Yancey Thigpen. What Saints team is the best team aside from the Super Bowl team? If we're going to just throw that out there, that's the God-given number one team.
It might not be the best team, but I think the favorite team is clearly the Katrina team, the year after Katrina. That not the fact that replayed the Monday Night Football game, which everyone was so excited about that. That's on YouTube 24/7. But everyone wanted to watch it to get on ESPN and create a special moment because our phones are blowing up.
Thinking the same thing, George.
Yeah, our phones were blowing up all night because ESPN replay. Like it's 24/7 available, and I've watched it numerously. A great occasion. But Ron,
You know what hey, real quick, George.
Not
you know what the
everybody has the
difference is
Saints
there?
podcast, though, George.
say it again, Ron.
Well, that's a fact. Not you know what the difference is there? Yeah, it's on YouTube anytime you want, but it brings people together when it's on everyone's TV at the same time.
No, I get it. And everyone was texting about it, and then we went down memory lane talking about what we did that day. And I was a junior.
Saints Twitter was on fire.
I was a junior. That was like my first like real hangover that next day, and it was a special day for everyone.
We were seniors, George.
I'm an idiot. Katrina, we were juniors. I'm an idiot. Yeah, seniors, of course. I'm getting excited because I've been trying to make my point here for a minute, not to put the Monday Night Football game. Because Ron, you and I, who do we love? We love the Jim Haslett Saints. We love the Aaron Brooks Saints. We love the Deuce Saints. We love the Joe Horn Saints. We love the original Steve Gleason Saints. So how about the Norman Hands Saints? How about the Saints that beat the Rams in the wild card, beat the greatest show on turf? That's a great Saints team for you. So hey. Maybe not the best Saints team ever. The best Saints team ever not to win the Super Bowl was the record-setting one. What was it, 2011, Ron? Correct me on that. And a really good Saints team was the team that lost the NFC Championship to the Rams on the no call. That was a really good team. But ones that
beating the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
But the one that that just has my heart is, of course, the Katrina team, the bounce back team when no one really knew who we were, a bunch of misfits put together like the Keanu Reeves movie. And then we just won. And, of course, the Aaron Brooks fun Saints days when it was just chaos and fun.
Jay, you got a favorite?
You know, marvel at these people that can go back and you name a year and they can think of the team. You know, if you tell me a number and you give me a face, I can tell you that's Talman Gardner. But it's hard for me to go back and think of the teams out there. Certainly, recent years, going back and thinking about just the devastating losses in the playoffs and to think about what could have been, even going back to when the Saints had the heartbreaking loss to Alex Smith and the 49ers in the last minute. That was a really good team. But I agree with George that the best team was probably, the team that lost in the NFC Championship, just because I thought they matched up well with New England. And I thought definitely, Los Angeles, the Rams were the hardest team that they were going to face the rest of the playoffs. So it's a little bit sad, Ron, when you go back and you start thinking about what could have been in the Breeze Payton years, and then just with all the uncertainty now, what's going to happen with this season.
Yeah, you want to talk about uncertainty. Heck, we didn't know if we were going to lose our head coach there for a second. I mean, Sean Payton gets diagnosed with the coronavirus. Were y'all a little worried when that first came out? I mean, was I the only one that was like, holy crap, this could be serious?
No, he's healthy. He's going to be all right. I don't want to put anything out there, but there may have been a picture circulating the World Wide Web of him gallivanting through Magazine Street on a bike the day before he proclaims, "I have the coronavirus." But that's our boy. We love him. He's healthy. He hits the gym, Ron. He might hit the dance floor and the liquor cabinet a little bit too, but he's going to get through it. He's healthy. He's the man.
No, I know he's the man. I mean, look, but I thought he had kind of eased off the CrossFit a little bit, so I was a little worried about him, man. You get settled down.
Every time the man boobs come back,
exactly.
Off the CrossFit.
It's so true, man. It's so true. I like to name drop some names of fluctuating weights, but I would never do that to any of my compadres. But he's like that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, remarried life, getting a little lax, maybe. Single Peyton, dude, that guy was ripped. But yeah, this guy not so much. So, all right, George, let's turn the page and close the book on 2019. It was a great season, a lot of great moments. Obviously, didn't end nearly the way we wanted it to. It's so hard to get back there, right? But looking forward, we've already had a lot of big moves in free agency, right? First and foremost, Drew Brees. Was there any concern, Jay, that he was going to just hang it up? I mean, you already talked about it. The guy's already got a contract with NBC, but I'm talking before he signed the extension. Were you thinking, hey, maybe that's it?
No, I mean, just the competitor in him. I feel like Breeze being part of this franchise since our junior year of high school. I think you start to understand the guy's psyche and how he thinks. And no, he's got too much pride to go out like that. And he hears what everybody says, all the naysayers, and he understands how good this team is around him. And he understands, I think, he probably is his biggest fan as far as what he thinks he has left in the tank. But give it to the guy. I think he was NFC Player of the Month. Was he NFC Player of the Month this year towards the later part of the season, and still put up some big numbers going back to that Titans game late in the season. But I think he's just too much of a competitor to walk away from the game with that bad taste in his mouth. And we can go back and look at the archives, and before this season, we pretty much concluded that 2019 was going to be Breeze's last year, but you never know how it shakes out. And I think he's too driven and motivated of a guy, and quarterbacks are ultimately judged on, especially the top 10, 15 of them, or how many Super Bowls do you have. And even if it's ugly, I think he'd prefer to go out like Peyton did in his last year and win a Super Bowl, so he can be mentioned in the same breath as some of those guys that have won multiple Super Bowls instead of just one or zero.
Yeah, George, think about this just from a Drew Brees perspective. He suffers through those 2014 through 2016, 7 and 9 years. He's got the league's worst defense ever, year after year, setting their own records for terrible defense. They kick off the 17 season. They go 0-2 miserably. But then they go on this run, and then 18, they go on the run, 19, they go on the run. And Jay's right. He sees it, right? This team has been built up all around him, and he's in this just twilight, but yet the team around him is in this golden era. I mean, were you happy to see the 2-year deal coming back, or were you on maybe some of these truther sides where, oh, no, we need to go all in on Bridgewater or all in on clickbait?
Ron, it's a modern-day tragedy. It's a modern-day tragedy. The fact that he was playing some of his best football with some of league history's worst NFL defenses. It's a modern-day tragedy. Watching him play in those years that you just alluded to, it's like watching a captain whose ship was sinking, and he was doing everything he could to bail out the water and help his men, and they were just complete and utterly inept. And it's a modern-day tragedy what he had to endure with that team. And then finally, when the team is good, his decline begins. I'm going to be honest, world. I didn't want to see Drew Brees come back. I love him. I mean, he took the Saints to the highest of highs. But it's Taysom time. It's Taysom's time. Look at the Vikings game. I just have more faith, and I just think it'd be more fun and entertaining to watch a clickbait offense than a Drew Brees declining one last lap. Oh, you did it, man. You did it last season. I just don't think he has what it takes. I would love to eat crow and then dance around our RV trip to the Super Bowl if he leads us there in 2021. I just wouldn't bet a dime on it. I think it's over for him. I love him. I love him. I love him. You see this happen with every athlete. Tom Brady's a freaking Buccaneer. Like, sometimes it just ends, man. It just ends. We've seen so many good players decline. It just happens in sports that some guys like Federer go on longer than normal, but at some point there's just an end. And to me, Taysom Hill is the new young, you look at a herd, he's the new bull. He's the new bull. He's the athletic
and
alpha
George,
male.
He's gone on longer than normal already. You look back at NFL's history, a lot of these quarterbacks that are historically some of the best fade out at 36, 35 years old, and Brady and Breeze are really the exceptions, and they're continuing to push the envelope.
We can only say the best things about Breeze, and I love him. I really do. I mean, just a type A go-getter, and I appreciate that. So, but I was so ready to go in with Taysom Hill as the 1 and then Bridgewater the 2. And people want to argue Bridgewater deserves the 1. Yeah, he did great in those 5 games. A+, 5-0. He did terrific. But that was a bit Jeremy Lin sanity. And if you could sell that stock right then and there, it'd be a great time. He's never going to be that good again. He was just he had a high and hit it at a good time, hit a good wave, and he rolled. And Teddy Bridgewater did a great job. Of all 3, I have the most faith right now in Taysom Hill. And I'm guessing the vast majority of the Who Dat Nation, the Rons out there, disagree with that. It's just my take. Maybe there's 18% of us that are on Team Clickbait. I think he's going to be Steve Young-esque, maybe a Diet Coke version of a guy who's just going to play with reckless abandonment and make plays happen. Is he going to throw interceptions? Yes. But he's going to will his team to win like Tim Tebow, and it's going to be so fun to watch if we can watch in the Superdome with CoRONa. It's going to be great. And it's just the new era. It's the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Deontay Harris, Mike Thomas era. It's going to be the new
What
day.
about this question, George? What about this? Does Taysom Hill give you a better chance to win a Super Bowl in 2020 than Drew Brees?
Yeah, I think he'll move the ball down the field more.
In his first year as a starter, you think he's got a better chance to win a Super Bowl than Brees?
I don't have any faith in Drew Brees anymore.
Gotcha. Ron, what do you think?
Wow, George. I did say that we re-signed him, right, to a 2-year extension. You saying to the Who Dat Nation and the Ron Nation that you have no faith in the 2020 Saints?
And Drew Brees, of the 2.
That's who your quarterback is?
Drew Brees. Dude, what do you want me to say? The proof is in the pudding. Look at the Vikings game.
You already said it.
Look at the Vikings game.
You're stirring up those emotions again. I already told you. Dude got freaking hit 7 times, sacked 5, sack fumble on one of them.
That happens to old quarterbacks. That doesn't happen to Lamar Jackson. What happens to Eli Manning happens to Tom Brady. You're trying to mask the truth with optimism?
No, I'm not trying to mask the truth with optimism. I'm saying you just said it happens with Tom Brady. Tom Brady's still winning Super Bowls. Drew Brees could still win Super Bowls if he had the protection and the team around him that Brady's had, and I think the Saints are getting there. The Saints are putting that team around him. Going back to your conversation about Bridgewater and clickbait, I'm shocked that you're going with clickbait. Like Jay says, guy's never been a full-time starter. And a lot of people forget this. They think that he's like that young bull, that young calf, George, that you were describing. He's 2 years older than Teddy Bridgewater. Now, Teddy Bridgewater has got some mileage on him from all of his injuries, but so does Taysom Hill. That's why Taysom Hill is 29 and so new in the league. He had a bunch of injuries. He went off for a year of mission work, I think, before he even went to college or some point during his college time at BYU. So yeah, people forget that there's mileage on both of these guys. And so I'm on team, get the real young calf, the young buck in the locker room, get him in the draft. Jay, what's the succession plan? Is it clickbait or is it somebody in the draft?
It's clearly clickbait. They put the first round tender on him, and that doesn't mean that the Saints won't go out and draft a quarterback maybe even early and just say, may the best man win, and this is a good situation. But I think, as we've talked about before, this is the shiny, bright new toy. Taysom, Peyton's made the Steve Young comparisons. So I think he's looking forward to the future with Taysom. And, all this talk kind of came out at the same time around the Super Bowl and after the Super Bowl of, the pitch count for Breeze being more limited this year and more of Taysom. And I don't even really know what that looks like in the NFL. I haven't seen that, and it's been a little bit pioneer to the effect that they've done it thus far with mixing in Taysom. So that's going to be interesting to see him get more snaps. And I know we were a little bit skeptical, George. I don't think you weren't as much, but coming into the season and saying, is Taysom going to be more effective or less effective than he was in 2018 going into 2019? And to Hill's credit, he was a lot more effective. And to Sean Payton's credit, he continued to be innovative with him and put him in different looks. And George, you compared him to Tim Tebow, and that's fun and all, but at some point it's, you mentioned fun and exciting, but you got to be able to do it, 75 plays a game, and you got to be able to score 28, 35 points. And aside from running over a guy, you're going to have to put it together consistently and drive down the field and go through your progressions and make throws into tight windows because – go ahead.
Let me jump in. When has he ever let you down? And I compare him to the willpower of Tim Tebow. I said quarterback-wise, he could be like Steve Young. And I don't want to turn him into the Messiah or really go overboard on him. And I don't have zero faith in Drew Brees. I have less faith. I should say that. Because if you have a healthy Teron Armstead, he's pretty good. He can get the job done. When stuff starts going wrong, he's not so good. Whereas Clickbait has the ability to improvise. And Jay, he's never let you down, man. He's one of those guys in life that you give him a task, he just gets it done.
I'm not against him. I'm not against him, but I am against him being the starter this year. I think Brees gives you the better chance to win a Super Bowl this year than Taysom does.
I said, let the guy shine, man. Everything you've given that guy, he's surprised you. He's just any task you give him, he gets it done the right way with a smile on his face. And just the Dome loves him. I love him. His teammates respect him. He can handle more. Give him more. He's the man for the job.
Right. And Ron, going back to your question, it wouldn't shock me if Peyton drafts, say Jake Fromm falls and he trades up to the 35th pick in the second round to get Fromm. And then, he sees what he has in Fromm. And then worst case scenario, Taysom is what they thought. Let's Taysom run with it in 2021, and then they're trading Fromm for a high draft pick 3 years later. Who knows? You just don't know with Peyton and quarterbacks.
Yeah, George, look, I don't think anyone's arguing Taysom Hill has done nothing but earn more reps, more playing time. And he's going to get all that because luckily the Saints put that high tender on him, that first round tender. Now, I personally said in our circles that if somebody was to offer Taysom Hill even a reasonable amount of money, I would say, give me that first round pick right now because I'm win now right now. You get a first round impact player that could be the difference this season. But George, you're right. He's done nothing but have success everywhere you put him. But you still you got to play the odds. You're just not sure if it's a flash in the pan. But look, we can't just talk about Teddy Bridgewater and overlook the fact that he is now a divisional rival, and so is Tom freaking Brady. And oh, by the way, like the Falcons are the most inconsistent story ever, but they've still got a former MVP quarterback. I mean, the NFC South is ridiculous right now. It's absolutely absurd. But George, let's just reflect on this. We're going to be seeing Tom Brady in the Dome this year. Well, hopefully, if fans are allowed in. But I mean, right. Look at this division.
Look at who Tom Brady had to work with last year for the Patriots. Now think he's got Mike Evans, Godwin, Smith. He's got weapons galore. So if he can, you read TB12 and you read about how he's just a workout phenom, and if he can be himself, and there's these TB12 disciples. It's like Capella CrossFit. If he can really do it, that could be a damn good offense. They don't run the ball. Have the Buccaneers run the ball since Mike Allstott and Barber? No. Rondé Barber played that was a ridiculous comparison. Andrew, please delete that. Have they run the ball since Mike Allstott
Wark
and
Dunn
Wark
and Mike
Dunn?
Allstott?
God, stop. I don't even want that to even
David
be on
Martin
that.
from Boise State,
State.
Cadillac Williams.
Yeah, but okay, so you can keep that on there, Andrew, because we're having fun. We're having fun. With that coach, they don't run the ball. Tom Brady is going to throw the ball a lot, and it could be fun to watch. And for the Panthers, for your question with the Panthers, let me just answer this. Imagine that locker room going from Cam Newton to Teddy Bridgewater. That you got a new coach, you got new scenes. Cam Newton is more interested in who's playing at the Coachella lineup than who's playing next weekend. Teddy Bridgewater is a pro's pro. And hey, as long as he's not playing the Saints, I wish him nothing but success. And I've never appreciated or respected a guy in a long time like I respect Bridgewater off the field of a former Saint or just a non-Saint. Bridgewater is a class act, and I really appreciate that guy.
No, did all the right things, said all the right things all the time while he was here. He was all in. He was on board. He was ready to be the heir apparent. And, the timing wasn't right. And it's a shame that it wasn't. But it's also a shame.
Pissed off if you're Bridgewater? If you're in Bridgewater's shoes, I'm pissed off. And what an opportunity for him to go to a division rival of the Saints and to play in the same offense. I mean, it's laid out perfectly for him.
I don't know that I'm pissed off. I mean, is it realistic to think, yeah, you came in, you won every game that you were asked to start, but did you really think that you were going to Wally Pipp Drew Brees? I don't think that's going to happen here.
I think
at the end of his career.
Right.
I don't think so. Not the way Brees was playing, not the way Brees proved to you that he could play when he came back. Hey, if he wants to use that as motivation, I think that's fair. I'm not saying that that's invalid. Yeah, I'm not saying that that's invalid. I just don't think he is. I don't think that Bridgewater's really feeling that. I think he was too much of a team guy and knew that this was always going to be Brees' team as long as he was healthy. And yeah, I do think it's a fun storyline. It's going to be a great storyline for those divisional rival games going forward, and I think it's going to even be more enticing when it's not Drew Brees quarterbacking the Saints. And
can't wait to see him check down to run CMC 15 times.
Speaking of run CMC, how about that contract, Jay? That's a nice little segue into another one of our fan questions here from our boy Hey Big. Yeah, you like how I'm working these in, huh? Yeah, our boy Hey Big.
But Ron, that's expert controls right there. I've noticed that earlier. It's expertly done how you've allocated questions as they come. We've never done that before. We've just done all the questions in one whirl. This is great. This is expert work. And one more thing, I want to give Jay a shout out. Jay, I laughed hard, but I was on mute when you made that check down to Christian McCaffrey because Bridgewater's going to do that 34 times a game. Do your thing, Ron.
Start calling you Paul Bart because you're good with the segues, Ron.
That's a good one. That's not bad at all. Brother. No, I'll drop y'all a quote later in the podcast about, good's not better, better's not best, all that good stuff, and how you always got to be improving. Look, it's not like I hadn't been doing anything on my time off. I've been on WebEx after WebEx. I've been having to navigate these conference calls like they are podcasts. That's how I get myself going every morning, man. Just treating it just like the cast.
All right, that's enough. All right.
So look. Oh yeah. Deflate them, pump them up, then deflate them. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
So look, back to the question at hand since George totally interrupted the awesome flow we had going. Yes, I've been dishing these out like Chris Paul on Pro Pels Talk 07-08 season. Hey Big's asking, does the McCaffrey signing mean that we should just be planning on moving on from Kamara if he's expecting that kind of money? Jay, I mean, in case you didn't see, 64 million, 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. You fall in love with the person that Alvin Kamara is. You fall in love with the prediction. You fall in love with how he's entrenched himself in this city, the Airheads, everything that he is, and everything that he's brought these great Saints teams the last 3 years. I was a little bit disappointed in his production last year. That Seattle game early on was great. He got hurt, played against the Jaguars, but really wasn't the same player down the stretch, and it really wasn't disclosed what was wrong with him. You would think the guy, coming up, on a contract that his play would not diminish the way it did down the stretch. But Ron, George, I think it's been proven, you just don't throw a ton of money at these running backs. Go back and look at a guy that's now in our division, Todd Gurley. He probably has arthritis in his knee, but even Ezekiel Elliott, it just leaves you strapped where you can't really spread the money around. We talked about how valuable the quarterback position is, and there's definitely a scale out there on which positions are most valuable, and we hit on one earlier in left tackle. Cornerback's another one, and then you make your way down the list, and there is running backs, and that is, there's plenty of evidence in that through this Sean Payton, Drew Brees era. They've won Super Bowls with guys like Pierre Thomas that wasn't even drafted. So as good as Kamara is, I think we can find a guy like, say a Dion Lewis in the prime of his career that can come in and be that lightning to Latavius Murray's thunder. And even when Kamara was hurt, that forced Peyton to really run the ball north-south, and that's when Latavius Murray was as successful as he was at any point during the season. So as much as it hurts me to say, as it hurts George to talk negatively about Breeze's future, it hurts me to talk about a potential divorce coming between the Saints and Kamara.
Yeah, George, anything to add on that? This was a guy, I feel like we always kind of thought Kamara wasn't going to be the guy that you re-sign, right?
Yeah, Breeze coming back changed a lot. I think I wouldn't say there's a 0% chance. I would, to answer Habig's question, verbatim, of course, you don't pay him CMC money. But there's going to come a time when he holds out this offseason, most likely. I just think it's going to happen. And when he holds out, there's going to be some negotiations. And it's not going to be McCaffrey money. It's not. So to answer Habig's question, agree with Jansen. However, if there is a little wiggle room and Loomis can always slice that pie to get everyone what they want, he's so good at that. I'm all right with keeping him. It's got to be for the right price because Jay just said it. He's completely correct. Running backs, you don't pay. We love Kamara. He sells tickets. He moves the ball down the field. He endured an injury last year where he wasn't himself. He didn't just IR himself. He played through it. Maybe it hurt his legacy a bit because we think he's not as good as he actually is. I don't know. I would love to see him as a Saint, but it's got to work out. So if he holds out and he's got money, no way, Jose.
George, you talk about holding out this offseason. It's a great segue into yet another fan question from our boy, DJ Doug. Are we going to be holding out? Are we going to be in our seats come game 1 this September? What? Just if you had to take a guess right now, where do you think your gut's telling you?
I'd say yeah. By September, the show must go on. Probably not a lot of elderly people in the seats. I don't want to get into all the CoROna and the politics. It's such a loaded question. But yes or no, I'd say yes.
Well, no, that's really all I want. I'm with you. I don't need to get all deep down like CDC on this PST podcast. It's just we got to have something to look forward to. So I'm just glad you're optimistic that we're going to be in the Dome this September.
Can we call Boogie for this question to get him to weigh in?
No. But Ron,
Boogie, hey, wait.
We should
go, George. I think I know where you're going.
We should mentally prepare that it's not, just so that we're not downtrodden and blue when it doesn't happen and the Saints are playing in an empty Superdome. But if they're truly not playing in front of fans, they could play at Tad Gorman. They could play in Tulane. They could play wherever they wanted because there's no fans. They could just play at any field with a camera. So that's just an interesting thing to think about, even though they probably want to go through their pregame routines and go through the locker rooms. But if there's no fans, they could play anywhere. Yet, still at the end of the day, I think they're going to play. A concern maybe leading up to that, though, is are they going to be allowed to fully practice? Because it's a true there's a lot of hands. There's a lot of people involved. It's a true production. Every day of practice, you guys both worked it. Y'all know better than I do.
I was going to say, Jay and I can tell you.
I just worked for the lowly Zephyrs next door, where it was less of a production. But we still got our act together. We did our thing with the Zephyrs. We don't want to get down that road too much, but it's a real production. It's a lot of people, hands-on-hands contact galore. So are they going to be able to do a mini camp? Are they going to be able to do a training camp? Are they going to be ready for day one? I think it's a bigger issue than are the fans going to be allowed in September.
We could do a 3-hour podcast on this.
Well, heck, yeah. But George, just got to plug it real quick. Yeah, Jay and I, former members of the Saints payroll, yeah, we could definitely tell you it takes a village. But George, you just said something that kind of cued me into, I think, a good segue into the next topic. You talked about, are they even going to be prepared? There were some rumors going around, are the Saints even prepared for this draft next week? Because I think they might have been banking on this thing getting postponed, rescheduled, and they're saying, nope, show's going on. We're going to have a virtual draft. So, Jay, I guess given that, let's say they are prepared, we've got several questions about this, and I just want to give credit where it's due here. We've got Raul, the tent maker. You like that one? Given the history of not drafting linebackers to be immediate starters, and he says, hey, besides Anzalone when he was healthy, do you think the Saints are satisfied with what we have? Do you think we draft a linebacker, get one in free agency? And look, I got to give credit again to my brother from another mother, Barrios. Do the Saints take a linebacker in the draft? Does Sean pull a Sean, or take best player available? Do you see that as a need for us, Jay?
Yeah, I think they really like A.J. Klein, who he went to Buffalo. And Klein missed some time this year, and there was a drop-off on defense. And he's one of those guys that you just take for granted because there's really nothing sexy about him. But when he wasn't there, you saw the drop-off. I'm trying to – Kiko, is Kiko back, Ron?
Yeah, I got an answer to this question, Ron. I'm going to cut you off, Jay.
No, let me go on here, George. I'm getting there. Just taking my time. But there's some good backers in this draft, including Patrick Queen, who kind of reminds me of another Tiger, Deion Jones, who can really run and came on late for LSU. Kenneth Murray from Oklahoma. He's a guy that I've followed really closely ever since Army when we played down there in 2018, and he had 25 tackles against the triple option attack. So, a lot of mock drafts have the Saints picking one of those two guys, and I think it is going to be best player available as it has been in the past, but BPA to a certain extent where, look, we have these four positions circled and say they have a top 10, 15 grade on Queen or Murray, and he slips to the Saints draft pick, then I can see the Saints taking a backer there.
Let me hop in, Ron.
Hop in.
All right. So it looks like if you look at our depth chart, I think like your average like ESPN.com writer who looks at depth charts and says, oh, they need a linebacker, we're going to put one on the mock draft. The linebackers look like our weakness. We're always in nickel. So having three linebackers is pretty much having an extra one. So we have three good ones. We have Alonzo, we have Anzalone, and of course we have Demario Davis. So with those three, I'm cool. And we talked about early in this episode.
You're contradicting yourself there.
No, you have two, and then you have one for depth. So you have three.
When's the last time Anzalone's played more than 10 games?
You got Kiko. We play in nickel. Having 3 for 2 positions is not a
I guess you
contradictory
would
statement.
say left tackle is more important than linebacker.
That's what I'm getting at. So we have positions that are valued in this league. Tackles, corners, quarterbacks, of course. A devalued position nowadays is linebacker. Are you going to use first round? There's a lot of good linebackers in this draft. I don't know if that's the position that's going to win us a Super Bowl despite the robust talent.
Yeah, George, the only argument I'll make for linebacker is we saw it. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess you saw it with Rudolph catching the touchdown to beat us in the wild card round. You definitely saw it in the 49ers game. You got problems covering some of these tight ends, and O.J. Howard with the Bucks, another rising talent. I mean, you're gonna have these tight ends that you got to compete with, and we don't really have a strong answer for that. Yeah, we loved what we saw out of the steal of the 2019 draft. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, CJ GJ, our boy, much love. But he's undersized to cover some of these guys. So you need somebody with a little bit of size and speed. And so that's why I wouldn't be opposed to that pick. Whoa, come on.
Malcolm Jenkins.
You really gonna come at me with Malcolm Jenkins, huh?
Yes.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm excited about the signing. Like, I'm definitely not like, oh man.
Wow, 60 minutes in, we're just covering Malcolm. Good.
Yeah.
Ron, how that answers
Jay.
the question tenfold. He is that guy.
I don't know. Maybe I need to re-see that, George. Maybe how quickly I forget, but I'm concerned about an aging veteran coming in and being able to cover some of the likes of some of these tight ends in the league.
Speaking about the Saints days, and I know we're getting a little sentimental on this particular pod, but good Malcolm Jenkins story. I think my second year working with the Saints, I got in there. I bothered the scouts enough where they said, all right, come work minicamp. So I was working minicamp. I was picking the rookies up in a shuttle every day and just bringing them from the hotel, the Marriott Hotel near the airport, to the facility on Airline Drive, hitting all those red lights. And I remember they said, yeah, all right, now we need you to go pick up Malcolm. And I was like, oh, shit, Malcolm Jenkins, obviously the first round pick. And they didn't have any lender cars, Suburbans usually they had, or Tahoes. So I took my mom's old 2003 Suburban, and I think it was probably Jenkins' second time to New Orleans. His first time probably came for his draft press conference. I picked him up, my mom's old Suburban. I remember running him through the New Orleans radio stations. This is B97. This is Q93. But just funny to see it come full circle with him back with the Saints, and always a guy that I've followed pretty closely. And he's a winner. And I think, to George's point, he still has something left in the tank. And if anything, what he has to contribute, which is very important, is that veteran leadership back in that secondary for guys like CJ GJ and even Marcus Williams and Lattimore. And he's a pro's pro that, hey, we haven't won many Super Bowls, and Jenkins was on that team and then goes to Philly. And it's not like they've won many Super Bowls lately. Wins one there. So good to have back, if not from a tangible standpoint, from an intangible standpoint.
And guys, where did he go to college?
I was just about to say it. I was like,
you got the Ohio State backfield in continuity.
Right. And most importantly, he's a Buckeye, so he's going to fit right in. He's going to be that perfect mentor, Jay, like you were getting at. Even though Eli Apple, sayonara, got on down the road.
Hey, he had a good run. It ended poorly.
I'm glad he's in the division.
Amen, brother. So, wait, Jay, you talked about going 60 minutes, and we haven't even talked about Malcolm Jenkins. We're 60 minutes in. We haven't talked about the fact that we freaking extended Andrews Pete. What?
I thought we were going to avoid that.
I'm happy too. Like, I'm happy to just kind of gloss over that because I still don't think that's real. I think that might be a Corona fever dream or something.
George, that's kind of like the conspiracy that we've talked about, like Loomis bringing Stephon Anthony back like 6 years into his
He
career.
does it to validate his point.
Exactly.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. One more thing, Ron, about the guys that were bringing back and not bringing him back. The Bengals signed Von Bell on a very team-friendly deal. I thought he was going to get more money than the $6 million per that he got, and we must have offered something comparable to that. I know he's from Ohio, so maybe he's eager to return. Shocked to see him go for low value away from the Saints.
The safety market,
but you've seen
really
it before,
weird, though. Yeah.
Yeah, safety market's weird, and you've seen it before. I mean, we saw it last offseason with Mark Ingram where it's a poker game, and, Saints are going to call bluffs sometimes, and guys are going to walk. And so you gotta wonder how those negotiations play out because it's absolutely chess. It ain't checkers.
It is, man, and that's one I'd love to go. I'd love to be a fly on the wall because that money that he got from the Bengals, we could have made that work. And he's a great contributor. I love Von Bell's progression. It's been great every year watching him become almost a Pro Bowl guy, not like a Pro Bowl alternate guy. He's
Vonnie
better
on the spot.
He led the league in fumble recoveries last year.
All right, so we got to work another question in, and y'all kind of didn't give me an opportunity when we were hitting the draft there, but some point in there we talked about Sean Payton is a carrier now. All right, he is a carrier of the coronavirus, and so our man Chuck Diesel Charles, aka Chaz, I know he's going to love that one. He's asking, hey, I know they're going virtual on this draft this year, but is Sean Payton going to find a way to sneak into this virtual draft and give Goodell the coronavirus?
Supposedly Goodell's been taking his elderberry vitamins every day.
Oh, yeah, dude. Zinc chews.
Yeah, you're right. So it looks like old Rod is going to be free from the COVID.
All right. So let's get even farther out because we got a question on this as well, is just looking out. So we talked about this offseason. We talked about some of the gaps from 19, where we're going next. But Chris Johnson, one of our most loyal listeners, has a pretty deep question here going into 21 and 22 contract expirations. And obviously at this point, we're assuming Drew Brees retires, but just let me scare you a little bit with the names that are coming up for free agency. Larry Warford, Demario Davis, Jared Cook, Sheldon Rankins, Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara, Alex Anzalone, Marcus and PJ Williams, Marshawn Lattimore, Ryan Ramczyk, P-Rob, Teron Armstead, and all the other guys that don't make the headline list. They're all UFAs after 2020 or 2021. So that's got to scare you a little bit of what maybe the 1 to 2 year future of this team looks like. So out of those names, and I know I gave you all a lot, who are the most important guys to keep the core together, to keep the run extending as long as you can get it?
Ramrod, Lattimore, and Davis.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. If I had to pick three, what do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I think going back to the importance of positions, it's difficult to find a really good cornerback. I'd say Lattimore fits in that category. He's not great. He's really good. Hopefully at some point he can become great. I saw Mike Tannenbaum redrafted that year's draft and had Lattimore going number 5 to the Titans. So that's a nice compliment to Lattimore. So I think the Saints need to find a way to keep him. And then Ramczyk, unfortunately, he picked the Minnesota game to have one of his worst games. But if you remember the first game of the year, not the last game of the year against the Texans, he kept J.J. Watt's stat sheet blank. Didn't do anything, 0 tackles, nothing, passes deflected. Ramczyk has been outstanding overall in his career as a New Orleans Saint, and that's an important position. So Ramczyk, Lattimore, I don't disagree.
DeMario.
Yeah, I don't disagree with DeMario. What were some of those other names, real quick, Ron?
George, I just want to point out real quick. All right, let me give you those again. Jared Cook, Larry Warford, Sheldon Rankins, Alex Anzalone, Marcus and PJ Williams,
Yeah.
Teron Armstead, and oh wait, George, you left out your boy Taysom Hill. You don't want him extended?
You know I wanted him extended. You threw a lot of names out there, Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson, I want to give you a shout out, man. Not only are you a great Blue Jay, you're a great advocate for the Pro Pels talk and the Pro Saints talk. And hey, you bring good insight, good questions every week, and we appreciate that. Ron, to answer your question, of course I want to bring back clickbait. I'm all in on the clickbait train. And anybody in 14 weeks or, coming to the season, they say, George, you were wrong about clickbait. Say, you can copy and paste this right here. I love clickbait. He's done everything we've asked of him, and he does it with a smile on his face, and he does it the right way. Of course, you re-sign clickbait, bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, this might be unpopular, but I think I might put Taysom ahead of Lattimore. I mean, at this point, if I'm going right here, right now, I mean, Lattimore potential might be a little bit, I don't know, arguable if it's higher or not. And I'm just going off a current resume. Lattimore's got to prove it to me this year.
His give a shit factor worries you.
Yeah, it's got to increase. It's got to increase. And I think, money's got a strange way of doing that to you. So I think we're going to see that.
To be a proponent of Lattimore, other options are scary. And really, aside from Jabari Greer and Mike McKenzie in his early days with the Saints, we really haven't seen corner play nearly at this level. Keenan Lewis maybe, but just having one really good cornerback really elevates your defense. And we've had piss poor corner play over the Saints' tenure, especially with Sean Payton. And just to have one guy who's competent and gets the job done, that really means a lot because we've seen some horrendous corner play in our time as Saints fans.
Jason David.
Hey, man, Fred Thomas was in his prime the other night, Monday night replay. That was great, man.
From?
Oh, Fred Thomas.
South Carolina State.
Wait, really?
Tennessee Martin.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, dude, Jansen, I was really about to say, like, Middle Tennessee. UT Martin.
Would have been close.
God, love it. George, we're kind of at that point in the podcast where I really didn't ever want to get here. I mean, I wanted to just keep this going forever. But I think I'm just going to give it to you right now for a little bit of a platform, a little bit of a soapbox. Maybe just to reflect on where this thing started and where it may or may not be going.
Great ambiguity, but guys, you might say, "Oh, Jay, he gives great insight. He's been with teams before. He makes the podcast." Oh, Ron, man, he's a great leader. He leads the podcast in great ways. He makes the podcast. Oh, George, he's such a fool, man. He says one thing and then contradicts himself the next, and then he's all over the place. He's a fool, but man, I love that dude. He makes the podcast. No. Or Boogie, of course, or Stat Ron, or even Stat, or I don't know what Pat's nickname was, Stat Man or Stat Boy. Pat was a great addition too. Bird was a great addition, but no. Not one person makes the podcast but Andrew Simmons. Andrew Simmons makes the podcast. And hey, this never would have happened. I'd be fumbling behind the computer and have given up eons ago about hosting the podcast. Without my main man's help, this wouldn't have taken off. And in the beginning, it was so humble. It was a YouTube video with me and Ron calling on Google Voice. And then Boogie came in. And then Jay came in. And then we really got traction. But I guess there's guys out there that you could pay to do this. And I don't know where you'd find them, but I guess I could have found them. I wouldn't have wanted to work with anyone other than Andrew Simmons. And Andrew Simmons, we thank you so much. We thank you so much. Don't be a jackass. We thank you so much for helping us out here, because these other guys, I know how much work you do behind the scenes to get Pro Saints Talk up, get Propels Talk up, to get John Landrum's Triple Win Workplace up and broadcasted. And we thank you so much for that. And hey, and to Ron's question was this, and I just want to give Andrew a shout out here, because that's hard work and he does a great job. Like clickbait with a smile on his face gets it done. Guys,
No, George, and I just want to say that, if he can make a couple clowns like us sound like a professional podcast.
No, man, we don't deserve him.
Says
we don't deserve him. We don't deserve. He does top-notch work. Going through all Jansen's and getting us sounding like we're Shannon Sharp on Fox Sports 1. But guys, Ron was kind of alluding to it. The podcast, it's a very uncertain future, especially with me. Ron, everybody will give him one clap together, one clap. Ron's having a second baby. It's going to get tough. Jay's selling every house uptown and downtown, the French Quarter. Boogie just had his first. It's going to be tough. I don't know where this podcast is going. It might be, at least for me, I don't want to speak for everyone else. I don't want to speak for anyone but myself. But for me, for George, it might be the end. But I've loved every ounce of this podcast. I've loved every ounce of what we've done here together. I love every Ron. I love Under the Overpass. I love it when y'all texting questions. And I just love it when we just talk about it. It's meant so much to me. It's been a lot of fun. We've killed it. We've actually far exceeded our greatest expectations. Our Podbean stats are pretty respectable given how mom and pop we are. It's all thanks to Andrew. I know I've said his name 15,000 times, but I love the dude. But hey, it's been a great run. It's been a great run. If you like us, follow us. I don't know how it's going to continue, but it may. So follow Pro Saints Talk. I'll come on at cameos like Boogie does. Propels Talk under Napoli's guidance. He's like Shackleton leading the Antarctica expedition. He's doing great work with Propels Talk with Offner and Ross. Follow them. They got Dan Dickow on the line. Great episode. Triple Win Workplace by John Landrum. A great podcast about leadership. A great podcast about business and life and how to overcome adversities. He's put 2 episodes out during the coronavirus days and quarantines that'll really help you out and see big picture. And hey, we've built a little family here with these 3 podcasts. We've done great. We're doing phenomenal. And I appreciate all the growth. I appreciate all of y'all. And I truly, truly have loved every ounce of this. I wouldn't have done it without y'all. And it's been great.
George, not a whole lot I can add to that. I was actually tearing up for a little bit of that just because this was just something that we just joked about and then maybe we just kind of talked about. And then maybe guys like Jay kind of poked us about a little bit saying, y'all need to just record it, dude. Y'all just need to do it. Well, we couldn't ever do it without Andrew. And you said that as good as anyone could, that, yeah, luckily Andrew came into our lives here. But like you said, George, the Pro Saints Talk name will likely go on. The Rons on the mic may change, but it's really about the Rons on the other side, right? That's what this podcast has always been about. We always said it was by fans for the fans. George, the first episode, it was just you and me. Same way we would do it every year
on YouTube,
just going down the depth chart in camp of what do we think about this guy? Who's going to make this team? Where's this guy at in his career? What's the story on this guy? Who's going to be the standout? Who's going to be the camp phenom? Who's going to be the Kakaha they're talking about in camp this year? So, it's just been, there's so many moments, and like I said, I don't want it to end. George, you're being way more realistic about this than any of us. We've all got lives. Just, it's crazy. I was packing up my house tonight. I'm moving Friday. Had to make sure I didn't pack the headset. Had to leave it out for tonight. Couldn't stand not doing this. And I hope you get the itch again, George. I really do, and I think you will. It's going to be a long off season, We'll
and a lot of time in quarantine. Maybe after the draft, we'll have another episode.
There
guys,
he is.
it's been
There he is.
we don't know where it's going. It's all I'm saying. But guys, let's get realistically. We didn't even have an episode after we lost the playoff game because everyone's got so much shit going on in their lives. Right now under quarantine, maybe we can do this more. I'm just letting the Rons know out there we all are juggling a lot, and we want to do this. We love it. We want to do this, but there's just a lot on our plates right now. This is not an asset. This is definitely a thing that we lose money on, but we do appreciate it. We do love y'all. Who knows, guys? I'm not going to say definitely over. It's just it took us months after a playoff loss to continue this. I don't know if a lot of Rons want to hear about all this. But guys, Ron said it well.
George, if that's not going to reel in the sponsorships, I don't know what will, man. Just this pathetic cry for we're going broke. We can't do this anymore.
No. It's not like we don't make any money on. My bad. You're right.
Now the sponsorship's going to come raining in. Hey, Napoli's got one lined up for us. Play Nola, where you at? So look, we're alluding to it. We don't know the future of this podcast, but we know the passion's never going to die, and we hope the same is on your end. And but be on the lookout for moves. The Pro Saints Talk name is not going anywhere. We've built a brand here. George, I don't know if you even dropped the number. We shattered 10,000 downloads. That's something to be proud of. And I am proud of that. And we couldn't have done it without Andrew, but we also couldn't have done it without all those guest appearances over those episodes. I think about 07 David Hellman giving us those retweets on his 70,000 follower Twitter account verified. I think about y'all's boy J.O. coming on and giving us that great draft analysis. George, just about every college roommate you've ever had came on this podcast. So it definitely has taken a village. It's been a lot of fun. I don't know what else we can say about it. I could get nostalgic for another hour, but George.
Well, bring us back. Let's finish. No, but we don't need to bring us back on track. Don't we have other things to talk about, other questions to answer? Let's we'll let that come as see fit. But I think we have more on topic discussions to bring up because I think a lot of people probably fast forward
right,
savvy
George.
10 minutes.
You're right, George. We have way more.
Bay.
We have more Tampa Bay. We have way more relevant topics to discuss because we still haven't answered Bird's most pressing, hottest off the press question. Do we bring back Dez at a time like this? We let Mike Thomas and Sanders be solo marked in the slot. Could you see that happening, George?
Is Jerry Rice available or Michael Irvin?
No, dude. Bird's two things. This whole process, this whole podcast has been Breeze's arm strength and bringing back Dez. Only veterans. He cares more about Dez Bryant than Bird does. No, and I got a name for y'all. And a position that people are going to talk a lot about is going to be wide receivers. Hey, we addressed that a little bit. Emmanuel Sanders, great addition. But who's that third wide receiver? Should we do a first-round pick on that? That's not a terrible idea. But one guy I'd like to invest in and really watch progress is Emmanuel Butler. And this might be his position, that number 3 wide receiver, to lose. So before Dez Bryant's name comes up, let's see what Emmanuel Butler brings to the table.
Yeah, George, it's just hard to I need to see it before I can believe it. After last year's camp, granted, the guy didn't do much in a game scenario. That's going to be the difference, right? He's going to have to do it in game. Can't have any of those drops. Because they're there for a second. It looked like Lil Jordan Humphrey maybe had the edge on him on the depth chart. So, you had some good names in camp, but somebody's got to emerge. And so, maybe this is the time. Maybe he needed last year to get his feet underneath him, get acclimated to game speed in the NFL. And maybe this is his time. But we'll see. I gotta see it first. If I'm rolling to maybe our final question of the night, I got Lil Dave Geo asking, where the heck is his big bros weather report? I'm sitting out here on the back porch tonight, y'all, and I'm freaking freezing. because I wasn't prepared for this
55.
weather. I had no idea that this cold front was coming in. What the hell, Red? Leaving a man stranded out here. All my news is nothing but Rona and no weather. I'm sitting here just freezing my butt off, man. Can't go in the house. Wife's sleeping. Nothing but boxes up in there. George, have you been acclimated to the weather, or is this throwing you all off too?
I'm not worried about myself, Ron. I'm not worried about myself. I'm worried about my plants. I garden all day, every day now, and I'm robust. I'm gonna get through it. I'm worried about my plants because these new baby sunflowers, they're like ankle high
Hope
right
you
now.
wrap the pipes.
All right, but Ron, you give me all the questions. Give your boy Jay some questions. Jay, where's the
I'm
weather
starving over here.
report? Where's Red?
I don't know. We sent out a search party to find vets, and maybe we need to tell them to shift their focus to Red, because whether you like it or not, Red became a staple on this show, and we need his report. So we're going to try to get that to you guys. We don't have it now as we're recording this podcast, but we're going to get it to you when we go live. Okay, so we'll have it. So don't worry about it.
And I feel like we're breaking down here. And guys, one last time, we had a great showing. We had a phenomenal showing underneath the overpass for the Vikings game. So let us go now to the sights and scenes that was the last game of 2019-2020.
So guys, playoff edition, under the overpass, beautiful weather as predicted by Red, and we actually are bestowed upon by a female attending under the overpass, and we'd like to understand from her viewpoint, the lens behind her beautiful sunglasses, what it's like to be the only female under the overpass. Here's Chelsea Godin, Favrex.
Where you at, Ronette?
Woo! It is wild and out under here. We got good jams, good beer, good boys. It's nice to be the only female. I'm enjoying myself.
All right, you heard it here first. Maybe we can recruit more females down the line. Maybe not. We'll see what happens.
Ladies, come and join us. Come and join me.
You have great ratios, ladies. See ya. Last and final attempt of Vetters getting out an UTO correspondence. He's very excited. He can't bestow all of his emotions on camera, on film, on the record, because he's excited. We're going to try it one more time. Here's a playoff edition. Vetters under the overpass to give his correspondence.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Fucking yoked. I'm looking around and all I see is Who Dat Nation. Boogie's got the clear purse and the binos in there. Doug's got his binos. And I mean, what more can you say? It's a Saints playoff game.
Nirvana. And one last question is for our boy Doug. He's your DJ, playing some nice DJ Jubilee in the background. 2, he's your official sound meter. Now, Doug, how loud is it going to get in the official Superdome sound meter today?
Well, you see, we saw the noise meter hit a 128 during the not-so-good 49ers game, but we're in the playoffs today. I'm thinking at least 131, 132. The Rons and 648 are going to be louder than they ever been all damn season. Back to you, George.
All right, we out.
It's been a great run. We're going to get through CoROna. The Saints will play again. Let's have some fun. Now take us out.
We out here, baby.